I've heard some say if you don't stop eating meat, give up the dairy products, you will go to hell. While I delighted myself very much in biblical truth, I also believe that we should not force our personal unbiblical opinions on others when it comes to what you should or should not eat. If I have my reasons to abstain from certain food, which is not supported by the Word of God, I can advise people as to why I give up this particular food, and hopefully my reasoning can help someone else to wise up. But to tell people if you don't give up flesh food and the dairy products, they will go to hell is absurd. Question is, does the Bible forbid people from eating flesh? Stay tuned for the truth. In the beginning, the Word of God was crystal clear concerning the food menu the Lord gave unto man in the garden. Genesis 1:29 says, "And God said, Behold, I have given you every herb bearing seed, which is upon the face of all the earth, and every tree in the which is the fruit of a tree yielding seed, to you it shall be for meat." After the flood, Noah and his family was the first God gave the green light to eat flesh. Noah, as a righteous man, knew what he could and could not eat pertaining to the clean and the unclean. We read in Genesis 9 chapter 3, "Every moving thing that liveth shall be meat for you, even as the green herbs have I given you all things." I believe the Lord gave them permission to eat flesh mainly due to the destruction of everything. Even then, the Lord could have caused everything to grow back, but He didn't. Instead, He changed things a bit by adding meat to their diet. Abraham also ate flesh in his days. Even the angels of the Lord ate flesh as well before they went down to destroy Sodom and Gomorrah. In Genesis 18, verse 1 through 8, we read, "And the Lord appeared unto him in the plains of Mamre, and he sat in the tent door in the heat of the day. And he lifted up his eyes and looked, and lo, 3 men stood by him. And when he saw them, he ran to meet them from the tent door, and bowed himself towards the ground, and said, My Lord, if now I have found favor in thy sight, pass not away, I pray thee, from thy servant. Let a little water, I pray you, be fetched, and wash your feet, and rest yourselves under the tree. And I will fetch morsel of bread, and comfort ye your hearts. After that ye shall pass on. For therefore are ye come to your servant. And they said, So do as thou hast said. And Abraham hastened into the tent unto Sarah, and said, Make ready quickly 3 measures of fine meal, knead it, and make cakes upon the hearth. And Abraham ran unto the herd, and fetched a calf tender and good, and gave it unto a young man, and hasted to dress it. And he took butter and milk, and the calf which he had dressed, and set it before them. And he stood by them under the tree, and they did eat. Throughout the Bible, we find some of the greatest God-fearing people who had super close relationship with the Lord. They ate flesh, and that did not compromise their friendship with the Lord. So who am I if I don't eat flesh to judge someone who does? There is no passage in the scriptures indicating the forbidding of flesh eating except in the book of Genesis chapter 1 verse 29, but the Lord changed that in Genesis 9 verse 3. Now we come down to Isaac, who ate flesh and loved it. We can read in Genesis chapter 27 verse 1 through 4, And it came to pass that when Isaac was old, and his eyes were dim, so that he could not see, he called Esau his eldest son, and said unto him, My son? And he said unto him, Here am I. And said, Behold, now I am old. I know not the day of my death. Now therefore take, I pray thee, thy weapons, thy quiver and thy bow, and go out to the field, and take me some venison, and make me savory meat such as I love, and bring it to me, that I may eat, that my soul may bless thee before I die. We also find Joseph, son of Jacob, ate flesh in his days, and the Lord used them in a very special way. In the life of Joseph can be found some Christ-like attributes as well, such as he was hated of his own brethren. He was sold for 20 pieces of silver, and he had a close relationship with God. We find in Genesis 43, verse 16, "And when Joseph saw Benjamin with them, he said to the ruler of his house, Bring these men home, and slay and make ready, for these men shall dine with me at noon." In the book of 1 Kings 17, verse 2 through 6, we find one of the most honorable prophet of God, which is Elijah, whom the Lord fed flesh using ravens. It reads, "And the word of the Lord came unto him, saying, Get thee hence, and turn thee eastward, and hide thyself by the brook Cherith, that is before Jordan. And it shall be that thou shalt drink of the brook. And I have commanded the ravens to feed thee there." So he went and did according unto the word of the Lord. For he went and dwelt by the brook Cherith, that is before Jordan. And the ravens brought him bread and flesh in the morning, and bread and flesh in the evening, and he drank of the brook. All these men were God's people, and they had a fine relationship with the Lord. If eating flesh can cause someone to be lost, then where would Elijah be today? Noah, Joseph, and many more? In the book of Romans chapter 14, verse 3, Paul said, "Let not him that eateth despise him that eateth not, and let not him which eateth not judge him that eateth, for God has received them." And Jesus also said in Matthew chapter 15, verse 11, "Not that which goeth into the mouth defile a man, but that which cometh out of the mouth, this defile a man." Jesus did not mean for us to go ahead and eat whatever we want. As his followers, we should be able to make the distinctions between the clean and the unclean, which bring us to the account of Daniel. In the book of Daniel chapter 1, verse 8, 11, and 12, "But Daniel purposed in his heart that he would not defile himself with the portions of the king's meat, nor with the wine which he drank. Therefore he requested of the prince of the eunuchs that he might not defile himself. Then said Daniel to Melzar, whom the prince of the eunuchs had set over Daniel, Ananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, Prove thy servants, I beseech thee, 10 days, and let them give us pulse to eat and water to drink." To my understanding, Daniel and his friends had their reasons not to defile themselves with the king's food. And I can think of two major reasons. Reason number one was that Babylon of old was a country of idolatry. Secondly, they were feasting on unclean meat. And Daniel, as a righteous man of God, knew better not to defile himself with unclean things. Jeremiah chapter 51 verse 47 tells us, "Therefore, behold, the days come that I will do judgment upon the graven images of Babylon, and her whole land shall be confounded, and all her slain shall fall in the midst of her." King Solomon took it a step further, saying in Proverbs chapter 23 verse 20 and 21, "Be not among winebibbers, among riotous eaters of flesh, for the drunkard and the glutton shall come to poverty, and drowsiness shall clothe a man with rags." While the Bible forbids not the eating of flesh, it can become a sin unto those who exercise poor self-control, like the world behaves without self-control. Making the habit of heavy flesh eating, or anything else for that matter, can be a sin, and you are destroying yourselves. My input on eating meat and using dairy products: I would rather for us to refrain from these things for health reasons, because what you are buying from the supermarket shelves nowadays are merely food. With men who has power in their hands tampering with everything God created, All the chemicals that are being used in food, even in the toothpaste we use to brush our teeth, are detrimental to our health. The best solution is for everyone to grow their own food. Then again, not everyone can afford that kind of luxury. So be cautious about what goes in your belly. Thank you for watching, and God bless.